The closure of the Strait of Hormuz has famously blocked the shipment of about 20% of the world's seaborne oil. What's talked about less is the blockage of the liquefied natural gas, or LNG. The total volume of LNG transiting the strait was just over 112 billion cubic meters in 2025, almost 20% of the global LNG trade. So, blocking of the Strait of Hormuz is having a similar impact on the global LNG market as it's having on the oil market. As I'm recording this, there's already been an announcement that the strait is open, and a day later that it's closed. And when it does open, a crisis like this could easily happen in the future. That's part of the problem with the global trade in oil and gas. It can be blocked. And even once the strait is cleared, shipments of LNG might not return to normal for years because of an Iranian strike on the world's largest gas liquefaction facility in Qatar. It's estimated that they've lost 17% of their export capacity, and it will take years to repair. So, can anything positive come out of this crisis? Before we get into that, let's have a quick review of what LNG is. Fossil gas, which is commonly called natural gas, is what it says on the tin, a fossil fuel that's a gas, almost entirely methane. It has been sold as a bridge fuel between dirty coal and clean renewables. But the fact is, like clean coal, that's just marketing claptrap. Natural gas is no more natural than coal or oil, and when you factor in methane leaking from the wells and pipelines, it's as damaging to the climate, given that methane is a much more powerful greenhouse gas than carbon dioxide. The primary way to transport the gas is by pipelines, but if you want to move it from the Persian Gulf, where it's plentiful, to India and China, where it's needed, it needs to be squeezed and cooled down to 160 degrees Celsius below zero. At that point, the gas becomes a liquid. A special ship that has tanks designed to store the LNG is used to transport it to a special port. There, the LNG is regasified and injected into the local pipelines, where it's used to generate electricity, fuel industry, heat homes, and produce fertilizer. The process of liquefying and regasifying the fossil gas consumes about 10% of the energy content. Both of these port facilities take years and about $1 billion to build. I talked more about these facilities in this video. Back to the Hormuz. Due to the war in Iran and the closing of the Strait of Hormuz, the price of LNG has doubled. And unlike oil, where there are ways to get some of it around the choke point in the strait, the fossil gas is trapped as long as the strait is closed. And Qatar was by far the largest supplier to the Asian market. So what can China, India, and other LNG importers do? If 20% of the supply is gone, they either need to get LNG from somewhere else or they need to reduce how much they use. There is significant export capacity coming online this year and the following ones, so they could pay the high prices now until the supply increases to match demand. But this will leave the importers of LNG at risk for future supply shocks from war, labor disputes, and wells running dry. So other than just getting the same polluting fuel, is it possible to use this disruption as a chance to get off the bridge and transition to renewables? We can look at the response to the previous disruption in the supply of fossil gas as a guide. Russia invaded Ukraine in February 2022. Not for the first time, but grabbing some border areas is different than marching on the capital. The EU finally took notice and looked at their dependence on Russian fossil fuels and responded. We see here the drop in the importation of fossil gas from Russia to the EU, a very dramatic drop in pipeline gas. Interestingly, the LNG exports actually have gone up a bit, but it was a small fraction of what was coming. The EU was able to cut its use of fossil gas quickly and significantly. How did Europe do that? By changing the way they generate electricity. There was a 15% drop in the use of gas in just 1 year, and a growth in solar and wind, which exceeded the drop in gas. While the growth in wind hasn't been as dramatic since 2023, the contribution from solar has continued to grow every year. Now, wind and solar generate more electricity than fossil fuels, and the transition is in full swing. The bridge is finally being crossed. This transition was not without pain. The price of electricity increased by 50% and has yet to return to pre-war prices, but they have remained stable since then. And since the role of fossil gas has diminished since 2022, Europe is less exposed to the closure of the strait than they would have been. So let's look at China. They currently import a bit over 109 billion cubic meters per year of LNG, about what was exported through the Strait of Hormuz before the war. So if China can get its demand for LNG down to zero, the problem is resolved. This is easier than you might think, since 61% of their gas is domestic and only a quarter is LNG, the rest coming from a pipeline from Russia. And gas only fuels 9% of their economy. So what we're looking for is about a drop of 2% of their primary energy. Only 3% of the gas is used generating electricity, mainly gas peaker plants, which are easily replaced with batteries. Given how quickly China is installing battery systems, this shouldn't be a problem, but it isn't a big dent in their gas consumption. For the other 22% of the gas used that needs to be replaced, it's going to be a mixture of solutions. There's no one big easy thing. The largest customer of fossil gas in China is industry, so that's where the heavy lifting will need to be. The focus should be on industrial sectors with overproduction. China is fairly accused of overproducing in many sectors and then dumping subsidized products into the world market. By China cutting production in these areas, they will still be able to meet domestic needs and export into the global market at a fair price. China acknowledges that overproduction is a problem, and there are existing efforts to reduce it for several high-energy products like cement and steel. By accelerating and expanding these efforts, China will be able to get by with less imported LNG, with a positive impact on their economy. Another solution is electrification. China has a history of economy-wide transformations at a speed unimaginable by other countries. An aggressive campaign to deploy technologies like heat pumps to reduce the use of gas for residential heating will help. Also, China's domestic production of gas has been steadily increasing, and that will also help replace some of the needed LNG at a lower cost. I'm not saying these things will happen, only that this is a possible response. Everything I'm suggesting that China could do is in their long-term best interest, so there's a chance it will happen. And of course, there will be similar efforts in Japan, South Korea, and India, but since most of the gas is consumed in China, that's where most of the savings will need to come from. If gas really is a bridge fuel, this crisis is the perfect time to cross that bridge in Asia, just like the Russian invasion triggered the crossing in Europe. All of the importers of LNG fighting over what's left just continues the addiction to what's poisoning our world. Hopefully, we'll see this as a call to action to end this addiction. We have the technologies to replace fossil fuels, some by electrification powered by the sun and wind, some by increased efficiency, like adding batteries to the grid or heating homes with heat pumps, and some by not doing something we shouldn't be doing anyway, like producing more than we need. My point is not that there will be no negative impacts from the blockage of LNG through the Strait of Hormuz, only that it won't be catastrophic, and positive changes that should be happening will be accelerated. You can support this channel by buying me a pint or a YouTube thanks. If you've learned something, please like and subscribe, and leave a comment to share your thoughts. And please share this video with everyone you know who thinks this is a great opportunity to get China to stop dumping products where you live.